Hi everyone. I thought I'd show you how I'm going to attach some buttons to an Ada shirt, Ada top, I think the pattern's called. So I've picked some buttons because this is just a muckabout top, so they're all different shapes. And what I've done is I've pinned where the two pieces of the shirt are going to come together. I've decided where the first button is going to go, and I've just marked that with a fabric pen. And then just using a ruler, I've marked 3 inches. I don't know if 3 inches is the right amount, but it looks sensible. So I've just put a fabric pen dot 3 inches along the shirt all the way down. And I know I'm going to need 6 buttons. What I've then done is done a test button or a test hole on using my button attachment. I've got that rigged up on the machine ready. So I had to play about a little bit with the length because although I've got different shape buttons, they're all pretty much as big as this, you know, the hole. If the square one can go through, then I know the other's going to go through. So I based my buttonhole on this square one. I know, and I know I'm doing this with one hand, but I know that that one will squeeze in. So I'm going to go over to the machine and just show you how I start to create the buttonholes. For me, I'm going to put the buttonhole on the top piece. Then once the buttonholes are done, I can make a mark on the behindy piece of fabric and make a fabric dot, and then I know that's where I'm going to sew the button. The other thing is in terms of where I'm going to start my hole of button. Because I've made that fabric dot, that's where the needle's going to start, and it will come round, down, create the buttonhole and come back up. So that is the top of my buttonhole, and I know that it's going to come down. So with my button, my first button is going to sit there. So let's get rigged up onto the machine. So I've got my buttonhole attachment set up on the machine. I'm going to feed the fabric through. I've had to take the pins out of the shirt because I only want to sew one side. Let's just angle that round. So I'm looking at my fabric, excuse me, my fabric dot that I made. And before I put the presser foot down, I'm going to just adjust the buttonhole so that where it starts, it's at the top right hand corner, which is about there. Then I will drop the needle in, so that's on my fabric dot. And now I can do the buttonhole. So I'm going to film just doing the first buttonhole, but then I'm going to replicate that across all of the others, and then I can show you what it looks like at the end. But we'll just start with one. Now remember, you're not going to be holding, you can rest your hand on the fabric, but you're not going to nudge the fabric because the buttonhole attachment is going to do all of the moving side. What I'm going to make sure is that, let's just move stuff, that the fabric doesn't get caught on anything when it's doing its move. The trick as well is, to just let it do its thing. And because I'm using a fabric pen, I can just iron that mark out afterwards, and that will get rid of the mark. What I also tend to do is I'll go round twice, and that gives it a nice strong fix on the buttonhole. It makes it slightly neater as well. So I've just come round to do the first round, and I'm just going to go round to start the second. The trick is as well with a buttonholer is to do a nice smooth, steady crank, or if you were doing it on a treadle or an electric machine. It doesn't like to go too fast. So So just a nice gentle even stitch going round. I'm just coming up towards the top again, and then I can stop. And let's bring the needle up. Scissors, always losing them. And I'm just going to snip the threads, but I'm not going to tidy those threads up just yet. And there is my first buttonhole, and I know that that's the right width for my button to go through. So I'm going to carry on and I'm just going to replicate and do the same thing. You can't even see, or you can just about see where my fabric dot was. It's under there somewhere. So I'm just going to now repeat and do the same thing with all of my other dots. Okay, I've done all the buttonholes now. Now, I haven't quite perfected it yet, so one of the buttonholes, well, they're all okay. They're not quite lined up perfectly, but I think I just need to have more practice with doing the buttonholes. What I did, that was the first one that I showed you on camera. And when I started the second one, I didn't cut the threads, so all the threads are joined up at the moment. I will just tidy that all up afterwards. Now, when you cut a buttonhole, I use a seam ripper. You can put a pin across the top here, and that will stop you slicing your threads. But what I've done, because I don't really like pins, is if you push that, get that going right at the very, let me pull up to the camera, right at the very start. I'm going to have to put this down. All right. If you do it right at the very start and give it a little slice, and then now that you know that you've sliced that, you can then make a precision hole this end and slice to your other slice, if that makes sense. That's how I've done it. So I'm just gonna hold it quite taut as well. Plus I'm going through, I don't know, 4 layers of fabric there. So I've already sliced that end. So now I can slice up, and I know, there you go. I know I'm not actually going to cut the buttonhole threads at all. So that's now opened up, and if I grab the button, that should poke straight through. I think I haven't cut it close enough to the edge. I haven't. So that's what I'm going to do next. Is I am just going to work my way down all the buttonholes, and then I'm going to lie the shirt flat, and then I can make the mark on the other side right in the center. What I'm actually going to do is put my pen through the hole right in the center, and that makes my mark for where the button's going to be on the other side. So that's what I'm going to just do next. Okay, I've matched up, I've cut all of the buttonholes open now. I've just pinned the bottom of my shirt just so that it's not going to go anywhere, and I've just made sure that that's lined up flat and correctly. And then all I'm going to do is just in the very center of each buttonhole is make a fabric mark, and that's going to give me a guide on where I'm going to sew my buttons. And yeah, the last one is leaning off the ironing board. So let's go there and just make a mark. So now, hopefully, there you go. So they're my buttonhole marks. So I know when I'm threading, sewing my buttons on, I know I'm going to put it straight through. My first stitch coming up is going to come through that hole, and then I can mark my buttons. So here's the buttons all sewn on now, and I try to keep them a bit quirky. I probably wouldn't have individual shaped buttons again, because I found even with using, I think it was the square one that I used as my base, they were a little bit tricky fitting on. So I think next time I would, if I did use different shaped buttons, I would have to check each buttonhole shape to the button. But this is a toil, so it's just a muckabout, but they've all come in, they've all gone in, and they fit quite well.